to Through the Bible. Today we will begin our next book, Judges, and listen to the story of a prophetess. Deborah and Barak go into battle. Judges chapters 4 and 5. After the death of Joshua, it was still necessary for the Israelites to fight against the Canaanites. They had not all been driven out of the land as God had commanded. Until that was done, there would be no lasting peace. Judah and Simeon were the first of the tribes to understand this, and they engaged in several wars against the Canaanites. They captured Jerusalem and Hebron and several other cities, and even took Gaza and Ashkelon and Ekron in the land of the Philistines to the coast of the Great Sea. When the Lord raised up a judge and people obeyed God, they lived in peace, and if they went into battle, they were victorious. But not all the tribes were as faithful to their promises. There were Canaanites and Canaanite towns left inside the borders of all the other tribes, and soon it was exactly as God had said. The Canaanites became as thorns in the sides of the Israelites, and their gods were a snare to them. As soon as the elders died who had known Joshua, the people began to turn to the ways of the heathen and worship the false gods of Baal and Ashtaroth. In his anger, God left them to the mercies of the Canaanites, and there was no rest for them from the attacks of these people. In spite of their disobedience, though, God still loved them, and He raised up from them among them judges, leaders who could help them escape from the clutches of their enemies. Still, there were some terrible times for the whole nation. For 8 years, they were under the rule of the Mesopotamians until Othniel, the judge, led them in overthrowing their conquerors. Again, for 18 years, they were in the hands of the Moabites until Ehud led them to freedom. Shamgar also freed them from the attacks of the Philistines. He was the man who used an ox goad to kill 600 Philistines. But Israel refused to learn a lesson, and they would not stop doing wrong. After the death of Ehud, as a result, the Israelites in the north fell into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, and his general Sisera, and for 20 years they did not know what freedom meant. But while they were under the rule of the Canaanites, they still had a judge of their own ruling in the south, this time a woman, the prophetess Deborah. A prophetess was a woman who lived in close touch with God and was able to act as God's mouthpiece, passing on God's message to the people. A man who was called to do the same work was called a prophet. Deborah lived between Ramah and Bethel in the land of Ephraim, and the people went to her whenever they needed advice because they could see she had been given wisdom from God. Deborah was very sad about the unhappy condition of the Israelites in the north. She sent for a man called Barak and told him to gather together 10,000 men from the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali and to move his army in the direction of Mount Tabor, where they would meet Sisera the Canaanite with his chariots and all the rest of his army. But Barak would not go unless Deborah herself went with him. Deborah promised to go with him, but the honor in this battle would not be to Barak, but to a woman into whose hands God would give Sisera the Canaanite. Barak and Deborah then gathered together their army of 10,000 men and moved up toward Mount Tabor. Sisera, in the meantime, had been told of their plans by a traitor called Heber the Kenite, and he gathered together his 900 iron chariots and the rest of his army. But on this day, the armored chariots did not help him. Barak's little army defeated the Canaanites very heavily, and even Sisera himself had to flee away on foot. After he had run some distance, he came to a tent which happened to belong to Heber the Kenite, and Heber's wife Jael invited him in to hide there a while. She covered him with a coat and gave him some milk to drink from a leather bottle. He asked her to stand guard in the door of the tent and then fell fast asleep. While he lay asleep, Jael took a tent peg and hammered it through Sisera's head, and he died. Then Jael went out and found the Israelite general Barak coming across the valley. To him she said, "Come, and I will show you the man you are looking for." So in that day Jabin the Canaanite king and his army and all his people were subdued before the Israelites, all through the deed of a woman. We would think that what Jael did was terrible and a murder, but the war between Canaan and Israel was so bitter that the Israelites thought highly of Jael for what she had done. Deborah and Barak even composed a victory song to remind the people of what had happened. Here are a few of the verses of that song. Praise ye the Lord of the avenging of Israel. Hear, O ye kings, give ear, O ye princes. I, even I, will sing unto the Lord. I will sing praise to the God of Israel. My heart is toward the governors of Israel, that offered themselves willingly among the people. Bless ye the Lord. The kings came and fought. Then fought the kings of Canaan in Tanakh by the waters of Megiddo. They fought from heaven. The stars in their courses fought against Sisera. Blessed above women shall Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, be. Blessed shall be she above all women in the tent. She put her hand to the nail and her right hand to the workman's hammer, and with the hammer she smote Sisera. She smote off his head when she had pierced and stricken through his temples. And after that great battle, the land of Israel had peace for 40 years.